What's up, everyone? It's Mike from The Art of Guitar. I just wanted to share some embarrassing stories about my top 6 onstage fails of all time. And they're not actually super bad. Like, I never crap my pants or thrown up on somebody or anything. But I think with these, I learned valuable lessons that I could share with you, and hopefully you can avoid some of these mistakes that I made that led to these embarrassing events. Okay, so the first one was when my old teenage band, well, we were a young teenage band, were playing an outdoor festival, and they had rented this stage that had like this top on it. It was like made out of aluminum, and I jumped up on the drum riser, and I wanted my solo to end very epically. So I jumped off the riser and I banged my head on top of the aluminum ceiling that they had. So that was embarrassing. It made a loud sound and I almost knocked myself out. So I guess the lesson for that is if you're going to jump off the drum riser, make sure that there's not a low ceiling, because that could be pretty embarrassing. Back then we were, headbangers, but that's not the kind of headbanging I wanted to do. Not too long ago we played a block party, and I was playing bass, and for the last song I switched over to guitar. So the guitar player handed me his guitar, and I didn't secure the strap. It was kind of twisted around me. So just as I was about to play the solo, the strap fell off. I almost dropped the guitar to the ground, and it was like a $1,000 Jazzmaster. That would have sucked. And it was basically, I was just about to, rip off an epic solo, and my ex-girlfriend was standing in front, and I wanted to look cool, and that's always when embarrassing things seem to happen. But yeah, the guitar dropped. I had to hold it, and I couldn't do my solo. I had to walk to the drum riser, prop it up on my leg, and slowly fix it. So check out the video. And hopefully none of the other embarrassing situations were captured on video like this one was. But that one wasn't so bad. But it taught me a good lesson. Make sure you check the strap, and also try not to showboat and show off in front of your ex-girlfriend, because it seems like karma takes over and you end up embarrassing yourself. And speaking of showing off, I used to, sometimes have a beer on stage when we had country gigs, because that's how you get through a country gig sometimes. And I would use it as a slide. One time I had a glass, it was like whiskey, and I just finished it, and then I was going to do this epic solo, or I thought I was going to. And so I started to try to slide with the glass, but it turns out there was a divot in the glass right where I was trying to slide. So the whole thing was a failure, and it sounded either terrible, like a high-pitched squeal, like a pig dying or something, or it sounded like nothing. But it was a full minute of me trying to make this glass work and not knowing why it wasn't working. It's because there was a divot in it. So once again, try not to show off. And also, if you're going to slide with the glass, make sure it's smooth glass and doesn't have a bunch of divots in it, okay? One time we were playing a rowdy show in Fargo, and the front row people were getting a little bit crazy, and I saw this one lady that just kept jumping around, and I had a bad feeling about it. So she ended up falling into the band, knocking my singer's keyboard to the ground, and as she did that, the momentum hit my mic stand and it bashed me right in the teeth, and I had a bloody mouth, and it was kind of embarrassing. Actually, I thought it looked kind of badass, but I was embarrassed at the time because it looked like I got punched. So the lesson learned there is, if there's people right in front of you, be careful, because all it takes is somebody falling into your mic stand, and you could be without your front teeth. So somebody almost knocked out my rabbit teeth. And there was a time my friend Brian and I were just going to play a two-man show, and the sun went down. It was the middle of summer in the Midwest, and it was pretty humid that day. And all of a sudden we got to the last tune. I think it was Riding the Storm Out. We were just going to do some crazy solos at the end. And all of a sudden they turn on these lights, and every single mosquito in the whole state rushed to the stage, I swear. And suddenly I heard his guitar stop, and I look over and he's swatting at these mosquitoes, and then all of a sudden I started getting attacked. So all you really saw at the last song of the show were two guys on stage like freaking out. I don't even know if people could see the mosquitoes. That's what's funny. Totally screwing up on guitar. When you are itching all over, it's really hard to remember what you're trying to play. So all the audience saw were two guys flipping out on stage and totally screwing up the song. And then we just ended it quickly, shut off the lights, and ran off the stage. So the one thing I guess I learned from that is bring bug spray if you're going to play outdoors in the summertime, because you never know what can happen. So attacked by a horde of mosquitoes. And the moment that was the most embarrassing for me at the time was I was playing keys in this cover band, and we would play a Boston song once in a while called Long Time. And there's a keyboard solo in the beginning that they call Foreplay. And it was always a challenge. I always wanted to try to play that. So I studied for 2 months, put a lot of time into it, went to play it on stage. I had a few times where I pulled it off. So I was excited. But the third time we were going to do it, I heard my singer right before we went on talk to a guy who was playing pool, and she said, "Watch him play this part. It's so crazy." And so I felt this new pressure, and I felt their eyes on me, and so I started to play it. And if you know the intro, I'll play a little bit for you here. It's all organ in the beginning. So my hands started to cramp up because I was nervous, and all of a sudden I felt like everyone's eyes on my hands, and my hand got really tired. It felt like it was trying to work through quicksand, and I just failed to the point where I just stopped completely. A big part of that is because when I went to learn it, I didn't really learn it note for note. I just played it until it felt familiar, and so I learned it by feel. So sometimes you need a little bit of knowledge of what you're doing, and you can't always rely on just patterns, because if one thing fails in the pattern, sometimes it all falls like a house of cards. So that's what happened. I actually stopped, went up to the microphone, and apologized to the audience. I'm like, sorry, I totally screwed up. I got to start over. So a couple lessons you can learn from that is when you learn something, make sure you thoroughly know it. You don't just kind of know it by feel. And secondly, if you do fail at something live, come back the next time and do it again and again and again until you finally get it. So like I said, they weren't terrible moments, but they were enough to teach me a lesson, and I wanted to pass those on to you guys so that you could hopefully learn from my mistakes, which is usually my goal for you guys. All right, let me know if you guys have had any embarrassing moments. I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there, so if you just want to leave it in the comments, that'd be great. And I guess we'll see you soon. Thanks.